Our headlines today. Ministers say they're in the final stages of negotiating a new asylum seekers treaty with Rwanda as the government tries to save its flagship policy, which the Supreme Court declared unlawful.
Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer has suffered a major rebellion over his refusal to call for a ceasefire in Gaza. 10 frontbenchers have left their jobs over the vote.
Good morning. There's been a lot of anger over standing charges for gas and electricity. Now, the energy regulator Ofgem says it's looking at alternatives. I'll explain how it's giving you the chance to have your say.
And how Tom Hanks is hoping to take people on a virtual journey to the moon with his latest project.
Good morning from a chilly Blackpool. We've got Blackpool Tower lit up behind us, home this weekend to Strictly Come Dancing. The forecast today is a wet and windy one across southern counties. That's all going to clear eastwards. Most of us will have a dry day until more rain sweeps in from the west later.
Only one public body in every 20 pays enough to cover the minimum cost of employing someone to provide care to those who need it. This is according to new research. The Home Care Association, which represents providers, says low fees paid by councils and the NHS increases the risk of people receiving poor care. Government says it's put billions of pounds of extra funding into social care and is improving the system. So we've got some breaking news for you this morning. This is about Royal Mail's parent company and their results, half-year profits. Ben, what have you got?
Royal Mail reveals that it made a loss of £319 million in the 6 months up to September. That's £100 million more than it lost in the same period last year. Now, it says some customers who abandoned the company during the strikes last year still haven't returned, and people also sent fewer letters, hence that loss of £319 million for the first 6 months of this financial year. It's already been a challenging week for Royal Mail. It was hit with a £5.6 million fine by the industry regulator, Ofcom, for missing targets covering both first and second-class deliveries. In the last financial year, it delivered less than 74% of first-class post within a day. That is far short of the 93% target, which is set by the watchdog. Royal Mail also failed to hit targets for second-class post. And around all of that, Ofcom said Royal Mail had breached its obligations to customers. But it's those very obligations which Royal Mail is also blaming for the big loss it made in the first half of this year. The boss said that the universal service obligation that requires Royal Mail to deliver 6 days a week to all UK addresses is, in his words, simply not sustainable. He described it as a network built for 20 billion letters when they're now only delivering about a third of that number.
Parcel firms have delivered a miserable service to consumers for the third year running. That's according to an annual survey by Citizens Advice. More than 13 million people reported experiencing a delivery problem in 1 month alone. Packages arriving late or being left in insecure locations were some of the most common complaints. In a world first, medical regulators in the UK have approved a gene therapy that aims to cure 2 rare blood disorders. Sickle cell disease and beta thalassemia are both life-threatening conditions that can cause extreme pain and leave sufferers needing regular blood transfusions. A new treatment, which involves removing stem cells from a patient's bone marrow, could rid sufferers of the symptoms completely. Now, it's the moment fans of The Crown have been waiting for. The royal drama returns with its 6th and final series today.
Let's take a look at the papers. The Telegraph, like many of this morning's papers, leading with the Prime Minister's vow to introduce emergency legislation to mark Rwanda a safe country. It follows the Supreme Court's judgment that the government's flagship asylum policy is unlawful.
The Sun carrying comments from the Prime Minister yesterday in which he said the British people's patience could only be stretched so thin over the issue of illegal immigration.
Elsewhere, The Guardian reports on a major rebellion for the Labour leader Sir Keir Starmer after 56 of his MPs voted for an immediate ceasefire in Gaza. Jess Phillips was among 10 frontbenchers who quit their roles to back the motion, which was tabled by the SNP yesterday.
And if you have a look at the Times front page covering developments which will see millions of women able to receive contraceptive pill free of charge from pharmacies without seeing a GP, a move the paper says will help free up doctors' appointments.
BBC Analysis has found that 2/3 of NHS maternity units in England don't consistently meet state safety standards, which is worse than a year ago when the figure was just over half.
The health regulator, the Care Quality Commission, says maternity has the worst safety ratings of all hospital services it inspects.
Now, what's making this morning's front pages, and they're mostly dominated by that news of that Supreme Court ruling yesterday after the Supreme Court struck down the government's plan to ship migrants to Rwanda as unlawful. The Financial Times reports that Rishi Sunak is now planning to change UK law to sidestep that ruling. The Metro 2 says the PM has a plan to still get his way and start flights to Rwanda next year. And that promise is also the lead story for The Guardian. The Telegraph too takes that angle as its top story, as does The Times, which says the Prime Minister will do whatever is necessary to deport migrants. And this is The Express. PM fights back, we will deport migrants. Meanwhile, here's The Sun's take on it, commenting on how fed up Mr Sunak must now be. And the Daily Mail's Quentin Lett writes the front page for his paper, describing what he calls Rishi Sunak's ice blue anger at the Supreme Court ruling. And the Eye leads with yesterday's bigger-than-expected inflation fall, which means that pensioners are in for a rise in April that is double the current rate. And just to let you know that if you want to see any of those front pages again or read the stories, you can scan the QR code on your screen.